again. But it's the only way.
Good morning and welcome to NUFC Matters this Saturday morning, and I am delighted to welcome Mick Lowe's back. Mick, God, you give us a shock there, lad.
Gave myself one, Stephen, a little bit of a one, I have to say. But the NHS have been absolutely, beyond belief. People have been very, very kind, friends, family, and of course the soldiers of the Toon Army have come and rallied round me. But the most important people of all have been the NHS. I've just got to very quickly say, Stephen, Lincoln Hospital, absolutely outstanding. The Queen's Medical Centre, was a night in there with a seizure when it was very, very scary for 24 hours. Absolutely fantastic. And since then, the rehabilitation I've had from King's Mill Hospital in Mansfield with the speech therapist, Rachel, and a nurse by the name of Helen, who've looked after me every day. They are absolutely outstanding people. You've been great as friends, you've been great as followers, but these are the key people. And the great irony, I was thinking about this last night, was, we're talking about tomorrow's game, we're talking about COVID, we're talking about COVID kicking back in. This hospital and the NHS, having worked with them for the last month or so, they don't want millions, they don't want hundreds and hundreds of pounds, etc. What they want is just a bit of care. What they want is people to just oblige themselves. And if we can vaccinate, and if we can boost, and if they can get an eye of people and find a key to COVID, then that helps them. That helps them work more on a day-to-day basis in the NHS, in hospitals. So, my message is just get jabbed, just get boosted, help these people do what they want. All they want to do is care people. They care people dearly. They've cared me, incredibly so. So let's help them. Let's work with COVID. Let's keep work with COVID. If this game tomorrow doesn't need to happen, don't have it happen. Let's just do this properly, get back life properly, and help these people in doing the sort of servant and doing the jobs that they're doing at incredible verses and incredible numbers.
Yeah, I mean, Mick, for you, was it something underlying? Did it just hit you, without going too much into your private business? Was it just something that happened?
I'm more than happy, Steve, because, in many ways, you're just trying to give other people a help as well. Funny enough, I tell you who I was. It was a Friday night. It was bonfire night. It was the day before the Brighton game. I was on the phone to Ando. Ando had just done the BBC, and I'd had 20 minutes crack with Ando about what Newcastle were doing that weekend. I went to have a cup of tea with my mother, and I just felt a bit strange. Within 25 minutes later, I said to her, "You better phone a doctor." Literally, I was in an emergency in Lincoln Hospital. I was in there for 5 days. I had a blood clot. I had a hemorrhage, brain hemorrhage, and I had basically become aphasia. It's what's called aphasia or dysphasia, which basically is about I'm just finding the words and losing my speech. Now, fortunately, I was better than that. I went back after 5 days for a week and then had a seizure, which apparently I'm told that after about 9% of people who have a stroke of some description, you are then prone to a seizure. And I had a hell of, I had no idea. I was fitting. I had no idea whatsoever. And I was literally then into an intensive care in the Queen's Medical Centre in Nottingham within an hour. They had me sorted, and literally I was out the next day. So, I have been so lucky in all this. But it's just how, you think to yourself, well, how does it happen? What would it happen? That's all it was. I find it difficult, Steve, because it's almost difficult for me to explain it because, medically, I'm not that well known, versed on these things. And also at this minute in time, my speech isn't as good as it was previously. But I'm just, just very, very lucky. and very fortunate that I was taken care of, as I said, by the NHS earlier. But then I think about this little kiddie at Birmingham last week, and I think about others who are way going through more than I am. So let's touch wood, keep the speech therapy, keep going, and anybody out there. I mean, there's a certain irony in there. I've had a very close friend who a lot of you will know, called Angus Loughran, who was Stato once upon a time with Badil and Skinner. He's been at this for about 2 years or so. He had a stroke. He kept it very quietly, but did on Twitter about 6 weeks ago declared that exactly. He has exactly the same as me. He has expressive dysphagia, and he's going through the same thing. So the pair of us, we've known for 30 years, we've been close friends. So we're sort of the aphasia brothers at the minute, just trying to keep it together. And that's all we ever did, and that's all we've ever done, Steve. Talked about football, had a bit of crack about football. We've been very lucky. We've been very lucky. But we're just trying to get there, and hopefully, if there are people out there who are feeling the same way and feeling worse than I am, you'll get there. You'll get there. Just keep at it. Keep working. Things like this are fantastic. Talking to you lads, talking, I'm talking about going to the team at Leicester tomorrow. I'm not sure if I will or not, but you just need to keep busy. Just try and keep the doctors talking, keep the speech therapists doing the work, and hopefully we'll get through and hopefully we'll get there.
Lots of positivity in the chat, as you would expect. Kirk says your speech is still first rate, mate, so don't worry about that. Chris says
I was always a shyster. I was always a shyster. Don't worry about that.
But it's great.
Do you know what?
Go on, Mick. Go on.
If I could step in, just I'll put my medical head on for 2 minutes if you still think. The thing I found terrible about this for Mick is somebody who made his living describing what was unfolding in front of him, finding ways to express the emotion of an event, finding ways to tell everybody that we couldn't get to the game in as many ways as possible to get them involved and get the hairs on the back of the neck standing up to be part of that event, to end up potentially staring something like an expressive dysphasia in the face is exceptionally cruel, I found. And I'm so glad to see you and hear you talking so well and looking so well, Mick, because they are difficult things to get back.
Absolutely.
Must be exceptionally frustrating for somebody so articulate to know what you want to say, and then your brain decides it doesn't want to let you. And the work you must be putting in to get back to where you are now, hats off to you, mate. And keep going. You're going to get there. It's quite patent you are. And I'm delighted, so delighted to see you looking so well.
And I think one thing that you have to, I think the one thing that I had to draw on more than anything, Mitch, is the fact that I have to keep saying to myself, how lucky have I been to run through what if I was 20 or 30 now, I might never be a commentator. I might never have had the opportunity. I might never have had the chance. I'd already called it a day in terms of commentary. So, I'd already pitched that park, I'd done that commentary. Imagine if I'd gone through what I'd gone through and what people are going through who are unable to do that, And the other great thing about football, believe it or not, is because in the memory boards of my mind, I've got this knowledge of football. I can still talk about all 92 Football League games. I can talk about every nickname. I can talk every football, this, that, and the other. But, the speech therapist says to me, what do you do when you ask a dog to go and take to the doctor? A vet? Could I find a vet? No. Could I find what guttering was? Could I find out what a greenhouse was? But I could find that Bramall Lane's Sheffield United. I can find that Gresty Road is Crewe Alexandra. I could find that Ayrton Park used to be. I've got this. She's looking at me. She's thinking I'm crackers. This guy's got this encyclopedic knowledge of all this football, but he can't tell me that green is grass and a greenhouse is full of tomatoes. You know, so
I think that's brilliant. That's brilliant.
It is what it is. But it's just fantastic to be, you know, on the presence of you lads here, and watching the games. And yes, as I say, you know, the speech and the language isn't 100%, and might never be, Mitch. You know, if you have a medical expert of any sort, you know, they've said to me, you know, there is a chance. There's absolutely every chance you'll never become Shakespeare or Dickens again. You know, but you know, you're doing well enough, and you just make sure you put A and B and C and D, and then if it gets a bit better than that, all well and good. So, you know,
you'll always be one of our Shakespeare's, mate. You'll always be one of us.
We'll see.
100%.
I make no apologies for just starting off with this and going on about it, Mick.
I was very keen to say thank you, Steve.
I know that.
Genuinely thank you, particularly about the NHS, but also about the hundreds of people, black and whites, as well as more so black and whites than probably most people. I spent 25 years of I spent more of my adult life in Newcastle upon Tyne than anywhere else. So it's important to me, and it's important to me that I thank them in the way that they responded over the last month or so.
Yeah, well said. Well, let's get back to talking about stuff which we all love talking about, and that is Newcastle United. And Mick, you're up.
Yeah.
You're first in the chat there. Let's you know, despite your medical emergency, and then the fact that you've had to get yourself sorted out, what is the feeling, do you think, now from your perspective about what you've seen so far? Because Eddie Howe's come in.
Yeah.
He's the manager. He's set his stall out. He's made a few changes, and we got our first win. So, look, Rome isn't built in a day. It's not anything to get too excited about, beating, one of your relegation rivals 1-0 at the bottom of the table. But there's the signs of hope, I feel, anyway, Mick. What do you feel?
Well, I think fundamentally the two highlights of my last month, one is just recently, one is probably over the last 2 weeks or so. But the two highlights of me, believe it or not, are the fact that a fella called Joe Linton has suddenly arrived into a footballer, because I honestly would hold my hands up. I'd given him. I'd absolutely given up on him. He's been fantastic for 2 or 3 weeks or so, 2 or 3 games. So the highlight for me, one is Joe Linton, and the other, more importantly, is that there is no more Sports Direct in that stadium.
Hey!
Just looking at that stadium, just watching that stadium is fantastic. It's just a small thing, but it just feels the world. On the footballing side of things, I've got to be a bit more serious. I've got to be a bit more spectacle in that. I'm sorry, but Brentford, Norwich, and Burnley, one win between the three of them isn't an awful lot. What we've got on the horizon is ominous for the next 5. And I'm a little bit disappointed. I know Rome was never built in a day, but I do look a little bit at what Steven Gerrard's doing. I do look a little bit at what Norwich City are doing. I know that we normally get a bounce. Managers normally get a bounce off anybody. And if we were going to get a bounce, you would seriously hope for Brentford, Norwich and Burnley. We haven't really had that bounce. We've been a bit chopping and changing. I like to see Fernandez, and then I see Fernandez drops back out of the side. Lewis comes in and looks decently and then comes back. Mankia, you and I have been talking about in the past, Steve. I quite like him, but he drops. I just think, and I think you have to allow for this. I think he is chop and changing. He is desperately trying to find exactly what he needs to do, Eddie Howe. But I'm sorry, it's game after game after game. And now we've got the 5 that we've got. We could very suddenly use and lose into a situation where come January and the key time of the month and the time of this season, we could still conceivably look at one win between 20 games. So I don't know. I'm a little bit wait and see with Eddie Howe, I have to say.
Okay. It's been a big week against you. I mean, Mick's already touched on the Sports Direct signs coming down have been well publicised. Lots of celebrations online, social media, etc. How did it make you feel just seeing those signs come down?
Well, before I answer that, I just want to say it's fantastic to see Mick back on the screen and looking so healthy and sounding better than I ever wish I could. You know, it's marvelous to see that. But I want to. I don't want to use the word blame because I think it's a bit strong. But I want to say Mick's a bit responsible for my excess weight over the last few weeks, because normally on a Saturday I go out walking, listening to you two guys. I go out in the heat and walk and get a sweat and I have the podcast on. But with Mick being away, I've had to fill in, so I haven't been getting the exercise.
You haven't filled in, you filled out.
Yeah, I certainly have. I certainly have. But that's just an excuse. No, seriously, it's brilliant to see Mick back. It's fantastic. Regarding the question, the Sports Direct, you know, it was the last thing, wasn't it? You know, Ashley had gone, Bruce had gone, then Charnley had gone. It was the last remnants of that era. And to see it coming down, it was, you know, it was even, I know some people were saying we should have had one of those time scale things, you know, and just watched it in that manner. But I was pleased because I think previously Amanda had alluded to it where she said she can't wait to get them down. So that gave clues that it was imminent. But to bring it down, it's the end of an era, and then we build again. You know, we need to move on. You know, what we can't keep doing is comparing with the last manager. We were comparing the previous manager. We don't want to compare this regime to the last regime. We've got the most amazing opportunity to kick on and become a football club beyond all our expectations, beyond our wildest dreams. And it starts now. And with someone like Eddie Howe in charge, the one thing I've noticed most importantly is the sound bites from the players. You know, of course, they're not going to say they don't like him, but it's all been full of praise. But his respect to me has to be earned. You're not given respect with a title, you have to earn it. And I believe he's earned the players' respect by making them a better footballer, making them fitter, making them more aware of their position, rather than trying to earn the respect by giving them days off. You know, so there's an immediate comparison if you want to look at it. And so it shows that we're moving forward. Will we move forward fast enough to salvage the season? I believe so. But it's not going to be easy, is it? You know, we're in such a difficult position at the moment. We want to make sure that we do stay together. And unfortunately for myself, I haven't been able to get to the game this season. But watching it and listening to the fans, it shows that everyone has come together the last 3 or 4 home games. And that's going to be needed for the rest of the season. And there will be times when we get beat. There will be times when we'll get beat when we shouldn't have. But there'll be times when we win when we shouldn't have as well. So we're just going to take the rough for this. We'll stick together. And we will get there. How quick we get there is anybody's guess. But we've got people in charge who want us to get there. It's their business. And to me, that's a key word, business. They haven't bought us just as a hobby, as a fad. They've bought us to make money. And the only way they can make us money is making this club as successful as possible. And we should all be signed in for this amazing ride that's coming.
Yeah, Mitch, we touched on it a little bit last night, but, you know, those signs coming down was symbolic, wasn't it?
Symbolic, as I touched on, like I was going to say, I touched on it yesterday, that unlike when Mike Ashley left Rangers, the fact that the signs have come down says that every last tendril of his empire is gone. It's not like when he left Rangers, when he still owned that club badge and he still owned that club shop and he still had them by the throat and it was up to him how hard he squeezed to make them yelp. He's gone. We've got the Mike Ashley Holden's accounts published. It shows the sale and the sale price in full. Done. Gone. And the signs coming down is the final piece of that statement. And I think that's why it is a significant moment. And the timing of that moment on the back of the first win with a little bit of momentum, I think is sort of again helping the fan base to start to come back together and focus on the job in hand. And it's a big job in hand. We're not going to make any bones about that at all. But last night's result, effectively for me, makes it 3 from 4. There's us, there's Watford, there's Burnley, and Norwich. So if we can do better than those 3, we should be okay. And in the process of that, as we're building and as we're getting better, if we can gain a bit of momentum, if we can pinch a few points over this difficult period and come away not so badly scraped and with the goal difference reasonably intact over this Christmas period, there'll be other people then also will, as always happens after January, some people start to drop down the table like stones and get pulled into it. And so there's opportunities there to drag other people in with it, with the battle. I believe we'll be in a relegation battle right up until probably the last month of the season. And because that's the way we are. We're starting very handicapped. It's like we've had a points deduction. And Howe's been there before and done it. And that's another element of his experience that, came to me the other night. I was thinking, hang on a minute, didn't he get them to safety after a points deduction as well? So he knows about what it feels like to get your backs against the wall like that. So all of this happening at the same time, I think, builds for momentum going into tomorrow's game if it goes ahead, and the indications seem to be today that it is. I know again we touched on it with Ben Jacobs last night. So hopefully it's something we can use. And like Mick says, I'm the opposite to you, Mick. I've said for a long time there was a footballer in there for Joe Linton, and I could never really explain why, other than the fact he's built like a cruiserweight boxer and looks like he should be able to use that frame. And for whatever reason, I don't know whether they've just put 50p in the meter, he's burst into life, and I'm all for it. Let's have some more.
Yeah. Al Walid, hope you're well, mate. There's been a question in the chat. It's a question we get asked on the show whenever we do it, and that's how many tops have you seen in Saudi? But you did clarify last week, unfortunately, that they don't walk around with Newcastle tops on because of the dress that they wear. So it's not something you're likely to see. But I'm going to ask a different question. How is the Saudi Supporters Association building now? You're on mute.
Sorry. First of all, welcome back, Sir Mick Lewis. Hope you are well, and we are happy to have you back. For the tops, I said before, Steve, usually this is not what we wear, and regarding all teams, only when we play or we go to some stadium, or maybe in the sport class in the school. So this is what usually we wear our dress, our wear instead. For the association is doing great, and we are increasing, numbers increasing, and offer increasing, and we happy that first game with the official supporter, the place it's called Safir Cafe, we got the 3 point. Also regarding the Sir Mick Lewis says the games we should win really, Norwich and Brentford and Burnley, all of them. But I believe because the coach Eddie Howe didn't he didn't take the advantage or full covering of the game, only against Burnley. Brentford was covered, and Brentford was covered. Norwich we got a red card at the beginning, so he only was comfortable or having all resources are there with Burnley game. Speaking of also Joelinton, it's obviously Steve Bruce. He was just let the player play by default, so that's why I just put him in the lineup, and that's it. Actually, this is one thing I want to mention regarding. I've been asked by a newspaper in Saudi Arabia to write important article, so I look to the event, so I chose the 129th anniversary of the club. I thought, it's a great event, but I expect more, more. I don't know the appropriate word, more fuss about it, or more talking about it. But actually, all the people, most number one topic was Sport Direct. So I regret if I didn't choose my article about Sport Direct. It will be maybe much click on it. So that was really for me. It was a surprise that it's all what most talking subject was the Sport Direct. But I understand why, but I didn't expect that. And regarding the, I expect we are gonna be the best team in transfer window and shopping list. So that's why I believe we are moving forward.
Great stuff, Al-Walid. Thanks as always for that update. And good luck. You seem to be getting lots of offers now. There's a lot of interest, a lot of buzz around Newcastle United. Which is great.
Steve, there is a heck of a lot of interest in what it is to thirst for information. They want to know more.
Yeah.
And they want to know more about the region and about the club and about the history. If you look at the Arab News is sports editor. There's a guy called Ali Khaled, big Liverpool fan. Lovely guy and a friend of a lot of Geordies. He's based here in Dubai. Arab News comes out of Riyadh officially. They now have a black and white podcast that Peter Eden, who a lot of people know, helps Ali Khaled run. And they're now starting every week. They've got an hour-long podcast talking about Newcastle United because there is this thirst for information, not just in Saudi, but in the Gulf region as a whole, that people want to know more. Everybody knows Alan Shearer, everybody knows Kevin Keegan, everybody knows the entertainers, but they don't know much before that. And they've not heard much after that other than, oh, well, they're constantly upset with the owner. And now the owner's gone. They're wanting to know more because now they see it as their team. And so it's fascinating to see it happening.
So an interesting point, Steve, that I was thinking about as I was listening to Al-Walid there. Now, I was going to make the point anyway, and he's come into it perfectly, and Mitch has mentioned it as well. My pressing point over the last 3 weeks or so has been a thought in my mind. Do we think that they'll push the button on January, that they will push the plug in terms of money and in terms of signings? Al-Walid, do you think that as a nature, as a business concern, as a mentality, Saudi businessmen, PIF, their footballing mentality, do you see them being likely to get out and really get about numbers, or whether they will be more conservative in January with their thoughts in terms of their signings?
I don't think we are going to be conservative, but I believe that now it's the time to spend. It's long-term project, but the fear of relegation, it will force us to. We are not looking for the concern of spending now. We will get. I think the club will get any player possible and in needs. With the budget, and we know the budget is high. Thanks for Mike Ashley for this. So regarding the fair play, so I think we are going strongly, and we'll get what we need, because for investment matter, will come later, and going for relegation battle, and we risk this just for thinking of investments, totally wrong, and I don't think this is going to happen.
No, I agree.
And I think from a regional mentality, I can see us making 3 or 4 what you would think perhaps more solid conservative signings.
Rather than splash the cash.
Genuinely wouldn't surprise me on top of that, though, that something marquee was done. Because that's the kind of statement they like to make. Here's the fastest Ferrari. This is the biggest tower. It really wouldn't surprise me to see a marquee signing scattered in there.
Yeah.
But I think it will also be tempered with some really good, solid input into the squad to strengthen where we need it for the forthcoming relegation fight.
Toonami's saying Fabrizio Romano is saying that we're in contact with Lingard, but he's questioning how when we've got no director of football. But ultimately, Dad and Amanda will be dealing with this until they put somebody in place. It's as simple as that. Just because there isn't a chief executive or a director of football in place doesn't mean that they can't do anything. I mean, ultimately, they've just appointed Eddie Howe as manager, head coach, and his staff. They got rid of Steve Bruce. They're making decisions, and they will not be pushed. And again, we brought it up on the Three Amigos last night, but the fact that at this moment in time, Mirdad is choosing to use social media on occasions to get a message out when he feels that there's a false message or a false narrative being put out by a journalist, or maybe it's a story which someone's put out in good faith, but unfortunately they've got the wrong end of the stick. Mirdad's using Twitter to put it to bed, and the Michael Emenalo thing is a prime example. That he wasn't offered the job. Mirdad says now we have to take that at face value, because he said, he may well have been in talks, he may well have had meetings, he may well have gone to Saudi or wherever and met up with whoever, but he hasn't been offered a position, so therefore he can't say that he didn't want to take it, if that is the case. And a lot of this is hearsay. It's he said, she said. Like I've always said on this show, and this is what we've always said on this platform, don't believe everything you read. Don't believe everything you see. And like we said with the takeover, until Amanda and Mirdad are standing on the pitch with a black and white scarf, it's never going to happen. That was our narrative. And it's exactly the same with football players in January. Until you see Lingard with a black and white strip on, it's that's not necessarily going to happen. So don't get carried away. And I don't understand how people don't understand that, because we all know the situation. Papers have to sell papers, media stations have to get likes and subscriptions and shared and whatever. So this is nature of the beast. Sit back, enjoy the ride. That's what I would say, and try not to get too carried away. Nothing wrong with discussing whether you think that person or this person would be good, but that is my view. Got to give a shout out to sponsors. Thanks to Spider VPN. Basically, Spider VPN have been with us for most of the shows, and they are the boys to trust with internet security. Spider VPN, search them on Google. They come up at the top of the search list. They are the boys to trust. And skipsandbins.com, telephone 0800 25 45 25 3. Email inquiries at skipsandbins.com. Website www.skipsandbins.com. Easy, contract free, and pay-as-you-go waste collection. Thank you, Scott and the lads. And to L&G Family Funeral Directors, 01913 897245. Thanks also to the Garden of Healing, who've come on this month, the dispensary, CBD hemp and cannabinoid specialists, www.thegohd.com. And Arcot Interiors, a returning sponsor. Good to see you guys back. Based on Heaton Road, best kitchens in the tune. Get yourself onto Arcot Interiors online. qtechshop.co.uk, of course, the makers of pool tables and snooker tables in Wales and Newcastle, and the guys who run our website, nufcmatters.com, and Jab Signature, who make all of our flyers. jabsignature.co.uk is their website. Subscribe, hit the Newcastle Legends button in the bottom right-hand corner. Hit the thumb up to like the video, click share to share to your other social media, and drop into the comments box to make a point or to speak to like-minded Newcastle fans. iTunes, Spotify, and all other podcast providers. We load our show on there within 24 hours of the lives. And if you want to use your phone to do something a bit fancy and get to our website, simply train your camera on that particular garish square, and you will get to our website, and lots of stuff on there. You can also become a member. John from QTech gave away a PlayStation 5 and accessories last night, so it is well worth joining the membership scheme. Don't forget, Matchday Bucket is operational to raise money for the food bank all year round. NUFC fans, foodbank.co.uk. Pop onto there, you can make a virtual deposit to the food bank at any time. And the Christmas jumpers are still available on the website. Get yourself a Christmas jumper. Well, you can still go out and have a Christmas party before Boris puts an end to that as well. Get your Christmas jumpers on sale now at nufcmatters.com. Got a few events coming up, and one I know which Mick will be looking forward to. Mick, the Peter Beardsley one coming up next year. I would imagine that's a target for you, Mick.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's like everything in life, Steve. You want to give yourself targets to go for, and that is a target. And if it is humanly possible for me to get through and do that, and as I say, I'm talking to the absolutely fantastic Rachel Clark, who's a speech therapist who I'm working with on a daily work and a daily basis. Hopefully we'll get there.
30th of January on the Westgate Road, the Time Theatre and Opera House, Peter Beardsley and hopefully Mick Lowes. And it will be a great afternoon of stories, revelations with the maestro Peter Beardsley. Tickets for that on Groupon and on Voucher. Get a cracking deal on there for VIP tickets as well, so get yourself on there. 2 smaller events coming up as well. One with Mick Mahoney, super goalie, on the 14th of January at the Irish Club. And then one with Steve Watson at the Irish Centre on the 28th of January. Both events are on sale. NewcastleLegends.com. Click shop, and you can buy those tickets for each event for £12. Don't forget, because I'm on my way to Leicester tomorrow, no live show, but I did do a pre-record with this guy, Alan Thompson. Tomo talking about his new book, A Geordie Boy, which has certainly caused a hell of a lot of controversy up in Glasgow amongst the Celtic, especially some of the revelations about his relationship with Neil Lennon. But well worth a read. Did a 40-minute interview with Alan yesterday, some about his time at Newcastle, a bit about his career as well at the likes of Bolton, Celtic, Leeds, etc. Some great stories, some great revelations, and got his views as well on Newcastle United at this present time, and whether he thinks the Longstaffs, who he's of course related to, will have a chance of forcing their way back into some kind of reckoning at St James's Park. So that's 40-minute interview. It'll be live on here at 6 o'clock tomorrow night. I'll be travelling back from Leicester then, hopefully. So as always, on a Saturday morning, what we've been doing since Mick took a little bit of time off to recuperate is doing a big question. So here we go. So today's big question, we'll go around everyone. We'll start with Mick. Is Eddie Howe has got all 4 centre-halves available tomorrow. Mm-hmm. Which 2 does he pick, Mick?
2 of the 4 are we talking about?
Yeah, which 2 would you pick?
2 centre-backs. I would put in Federico Fernandez. Oh, dear me. Now you are pushing me. The one I would have said, and I think I probably am going to stay. You know, people will probably shout me down with this because of what happened against Norwich. But I would have Kieran Clark and Federico Fernandez. There you go. I've done it.
Interesting.
I've just got to, Steve, because Shah just leaves me completely, leaves me cold. And let's put it this way. Whatever Kieran Clark did against Norwich City wasn't particularly clever. But what Shah potentially did and lose the game with 2 minutes from time was just as worse, if not worse still. And I'm afraid Jamal Lascelles, again, I just don't see him as a captain. I don't see him as a player. I don't see him as a leader. And I think if you give Kieran Clark a little bit of floating area in and around centre back alongside Fernandez, I would live just about with the 2 of those.
Okay, same question to you then, Stu. I think we're going to get different answers from everybody here.
Well, I'll give you the same answer as what Mick's just give.
Really?
I think Fernandez and Kieran Clark complement each other really well.
Yeah.
You've got a right foot and a left foot, and this team's about symmetry and balance now. And I think it's really important. Kieran made a mistake a couple of weeks ago, but he's similar to Paul Dummett. He's a very regular 7 out of 10 guy, and he's not going to let you down. The thing that concerns me most tomorrow is the pace that Leicester have got up front. Lascelles did well against Burnley, and I thought he had an exceptional game, but it's a different challenge tomorrow. You've got Vardy's pace, they've all got pace, and he can get turned too easy, where I think Clark and Fernandez will be more mobile, and I believe Shaw would be more susceptible to being sent off tomorrow. If someone's going to get sent off tomorrow, he has that mistake in him. If someone goes past him, just dangle his leg out. But I believe that's who I would pick. But I think Eddie Howe will go for horses for courses and not change your winning team, especially a backline that didn't concede. And when one of those backlines is your captain, then it makes sense to stick with what you've got. But out of those 4, from what we have, it would definitely be Fernandez and Clark, but I believe he'll pick the other two.
Right. Okay, Mitch.
Well, I'm going to keep surprising you because for exactly the reasons that Stuart's mentioned, I would go with Clark and Fernandez as well.
Wow.
I think that right and left balance.
Yeah.
I think Fernandez is more of a leader on the pitch in many ways than we see. I think Clark is somebody that has the respect of the entire dressing room and is well liked as part of the group. And I think if we're playing a back four, that's the two. It's different if we're talking about playing a back five and we're playing three centre backs.
Yeah.
That becomes a different conversation. But I think in a back four, that's the two I would go with as agreed with Mick and Stu. I don't think that's the two that Howe would go with.
Okay, Al-Walid, what about you? Are you going to give us a different answer?
Come on, Al-Walid.
Actually, I would choose Jamal Lascelles, and I expect last game Jamal Lascelles and Fernandez, but maybe the coach Eddie Howe think they are not good together, or maybe Fernandez needs still time. I'm not really sure, but he did okay against Norwich when he come inside. So and I could say Jamal and Fernandez to be in the lineup. But also Shar did great last game with Jamal against Burnley with a clean sheet.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, I would probably go for Fernandez and Lascelles, to be honest, and only and I can see where you guys are coming from, but I would probably go for those two simply because of the fact that Lascelles has been, well, he is the captain. He's clearly got an influence in that dressing room, and I think that's the best pairing at this moment in time. And I know he hasn't been great, Lascelles, but then name one player who's been consistently good all season. Clark hasn't performed well home or away this season for me, and usually I'm one of Clark's biggest fans, but I don't think he's got the same ability as he had a few years ago. And I mean, he was always brought in as a squad player. He was never brought in to play first team, but then ended up being thrown into the deep end. And that's, I just think he's probably going to find himself on the sidelines. But I think it'll be Lascelles and Fernandez. I think we all agree Fernandez should be in there, but again, it's just down to the whole, the issues that he's clearly had off the pitch as to whether he's capable of playing every single game. But yeah, it will be interesting. It was a good big question, good answers.
Steve, just
yeah.
Sorry, go on. Sorry.
I was just about to say, do we not find it really surprising that the five of us universally, most people we speak to universally, see Fernandez as a player, see Fernandez as potentially a leader and a captain as well as a player, also an organizer, all manner of, he ticks an awful lot of boxes, Fernandez. He's got the opportunity to be the new manager who can dispense with what the previous manager didn't say. He's got no excuse but to say, right, actually, I like this guy. I'm the new in charge. I'm the new guy who's the manager. I'm sticking him straight in. He still says good things about him. He continues to say good things about him in the last 2 or 3 games, and yet never starts him. And I don't understand it.
Mick, I think Stu would probably confirm this as well from conversations we've had in the last couple of weeks with various people. Our understanding is that he's been missing for a non-footballing reason, right? And that the club, have been exceptionally supportive of him and want the very best for him. And I think that's why he's been taken out of the spotlight a little bit. Now, I haven't had any update on that. I don't know whether he's now ready to be back in the team full time. And I've not heard any different, but certainly the reason for the absence has not been a football reason, that's for sure.
Yeah. I can add to that and say I can categorically and comprehensively say that he has not suffered from COVID or is suffering from any type of long COVID or whatever else has been rumoured. It is a personal matter, but he's training well. And the club are very supportive of him, and he's working his way back in. And when he's been on the bench, this is why at the start of the season, when the gaffe that was made by saying if he's not playing, there's no point in having him on the bench. I mean, that was said, although it blew up in the face. I think it wasn't Bruce that said it, was it? But whoever did say it was said to more protect Fernandez. Now, what you've got is that when he came on against Norwich, I think there's an agreement. Look, we'll use you only if we have to, until things are better. And when he came on against Norwich, it was just like blatantly just thrown in, and the performance he gave was exceptional, wasn't it? You know, and I think he had no time to think about it. There was just straight in, and it's like auto mode clicked in, and off he went, and you could see that he was enjoying it, and it was fantastic to see. So hopefully he'll be back sooner than what was initially anticipated.
Okay.
Yeah, fingers crossed.
I just want to add that the players, defensive players, they're exposed now with the new formation, a new lineup. So I think maybe Clark with a new new lineup, he get shaky against Norwich. So that's why this selection was. And for Fernandez, I think maybe it's depends exactly what he and what was the issue. Maybe the issue was very big, maybe, or something unforgettable. I don't know.
He did have COVID, Fernandez, as well. He did have COVID. So, I mean, that could have played its part.
Yeah, but this long COVID thing that's been mentioned, it's not true. But I think one thing we can all be in agreement is it's an area that we need to improve on first and foremost as soon as we're possibly able to come January. You know, and what I think we're in desperate need of is the way that the game's evolved is a centre half with pace and someone who can read the game. You know, there's someone like Shaw who was a quicker Shaw would be ideal, but he's not. But that's the first thing that we need to attack, and then to me the next position we would need would be as a holding centre midfielder to act as a pivot with all these people running around him. As Mitch mentioned last night, we've heard that in the training that there's Joe Linton, there's Miggy, there's ASM. They're flying, they're absolutely flying. Now, my concern, I actually, when we were talking about it, I started laughing, thinking, well, so could I fly if I was playing against Newcastle's defence, but that's who they're playing against in training, isn't it? But we've got the legs, and we've got the pace. What we didn't have was a plan, and the players to be aware of what their role in the team was and what's meant to be. I think it was more of just go out there and do what you want in Keegan style. But Keegan had the quality and the leadership to do that. So we can debate all day about these four centre halves, but I think every single supporter of Newcastle United would say that's the first area we need to improve on.
We'll probably finish off with this one because we've only got about 12 minutes left, and I think everyone will have an opinion on this. Paul Kinson asks, should Alan Saint-Maximin start tomorrow, Mick? Because he certainly hasn't been on top form in the last few games. Bit of a luxury player, gets people off the seats, which is great, but very little end product this season, and decision making is questionable. Not passing the ball to the right people at the right time, taking shots which are ballooning into the stands, and there's not an end product there, Mick. So you can see why Paul's asking the question.
You can see it, but you can see it both ways as well. I mean, let's not forget for an awful lot of the last 8 seasons, like 8 months. He has been, with the exception of Wilson, he's been the key boy. He's been the only person who's going to try and either put the ball in the back of the net or create a chance. It would be a little bit silly, I think, now to dispense of him and say, well, he has been inconsistent. I've said he's been inconsistent. He's been inconsistent for a long time. Is there an element of the Steve Bruce mentality? The fact that he said some very, very endearing things about Steve Bruce and what Steve Bruce endeared towards him as a player, and that obviously once Steve Bruce had left, was he unhappy with the fact that he'd been overseen by the football club? Has he also been talked about by other clubs and agents? There's an element of that as well. I think the bottom line is he has always been a very inconsistent footballer, left, right, and centre. You know, he polled up at Newcastle United. He wasn't at Liverpool. He wasn't at Manchester City. He wasn't at Everton. He wasn't at West Ham United. He was at Newcastle United. People had a good look at ASM. You know, people had a look about of him and thought, right, okay, maybe we're not that sure of him. Even since then, even in days when he's done well at Newcastle, there's nobody really been knocking on the door thinking ASM is somebody we need at a top club. So I've never been, you know, convinced by Alan Saint-Maximin. Would they bring him in tomorrow? I would bring him back in. Of course I would, because I would bring him in ahead of Almiron. I mean, in terms of Almiron, he's way the better player. But then when we talk there about this player being interesting, this player being beneficial, does Jesse Lingard get moved in at January? Well, how can you have Jesse Lingard if you've got some of the players we've already talked about being, you know, pivotal in terms of scoring opportunities for Newcastle United? So I don't really, either way, I'm not really too plussed on whether ASM starts or whether ASM doesn't start. Whether he arrives long term in January is another matter, but I don't know. I would start with him. I would start with him. I think you've got to.
Okay, Stu, what about you? ASM?
Yeah, you've got to start with him. I think it was John Gibbo the other night was saying that you've got to take shots to score goals. And he's capable of beating his man and shooting or creating a chance. And we don't have that much creativity yet. And for me, it's strange that we're having this sort of debate. Should ASM be starting for us when we need to get goals? It's the formation needs to be tinkered to make sure that he's not tracking back because he's a liability doing that. But we've got a manager who's got a footballing brain and can do that. So me, start him every single game he's fit to do. And if he needs replacing at the end of the season, you never know. But he's the sort of player that needs an arm around him. Tell him we're going to build a team around him. Tell him that how important he is, and show him different ways. Look, sit him down with videos. You see, when you've got the ball here, you're running that way. Try doing this. Think, stop doing. Pass it that way. Pass it this way. Hold on to it. Then stand in this position. Face that way. And they've got enough now coaches who care and are putting attention into players individually rather than just collectively. And I think he will improve. You know, and let's have him scoring tomorrow. Let's get ASM scoring a goal tomorrow. He's everyone's hero again. He's had a bad run of games, but it does make him a bad player.
No, definitely not. Mitch, I would agree as well. I would say that, you know, ASM has to start. We're in a relegation fight. You need your best players.
You do, and I think both Mick and Stu have hit the nail on the head with their comments. I think you look at, okay, who would you put in for him? And I think most people's answer would be Almiron. Well, let's talk about Almiron's end product. We're seeing much of that. You know, if you've got somebody sitting on the bench who maybe has contributed maybe 15 assists and a couple of goals last season, you'd be saying, yeah, look, there's end product there. There's somebody we should be putting in, or we're going to go with a show pony, or we're going to go with Mr. Consistency. We don't have anybody like that sitting on the bench waiting to come in. Almiron looks busier, and he does do a lot more scuttling and harrying. There's no doubt about that. But again, we're only going to win the games if we're putting the ball in the back of the net on a regular basis. And based on what we saw from from ASM last season when he came back from injury, he was the difference in that run-in. He made stuff, he created stuff. Him and Wilson between them, you know, terrorised a couple of teams. And so, okay, that might only happen 1 game in 4 from him, but at least it's happening. And so I think for now, as long as we can adapt the formation, I personally think the player we need to be seeing a little bit more of is Willock.
Yeah.
That we, you know, and find a way to get the best out of him. I think that's the conversation we should be having, and allow ASM to do what he does, because I think you guys all know my feeling. I love a maverick. I love a gunslinger. I love somebody who has swagger and doesn't give an F about anything. I love that in a player, and I'd always try and find room for a player like that in my teams if I was picking teams. And I think the potential for him when it clicks is huge, and so I think you've got to stick with it.
Our lead, ASM, he's a great player on his day, but he has flattered to deceive in recent weeks. Would you start him tomorrow against Leicester?
Of course, if I'm a player in Newcastle, I would like to Saint-Maximin to start, because he will help me get more spaces, because all the defender of other teams go to Saint-Maximin. This will open me the way, like for Joelinton, and also we notice Eddie Howe put Almiron on the other side, so we get both benefit from the wing. So definitely he should be. But regarding his performance, we are in difficult situation. Too many coach, in short times. But I think he will. He'll start to get back to his usual state.
Fingers crossed. Predictions for tomorrow, then, Mick.
I think I don't like the way that Maddison has started playing again, and is certainly getting closer to where he was previously. Obviously, Vardy's always going to score you a goal. Tielemans always going to score you a goal. But I just think they're a bit flaky at the minute. I just think they're a bit feeling sorry for themselves. They've come away from Napoli. They've got this COVID element. I think we might just nick a draw. I think there'll be a few points actually. I think it might be a 2-2 or something like that. But I think we might just win a square. See what I mean about the game? A point, not a square.
Mick, you're getting there, mate.
I'm getting there.
Mick, and you're still with us. That's the most important thing.
Somehow.
So you're going for a win. I hope, Mitch, I hope you've got your lucky dice, by the way. Stu?
Yeah.
Well, if you asked this last week, I would have said 1-1. Then during the week, I was going to go with what Mick just said, to go with the Desmond, the old 2-2. But as I do with the 3-1s, but you can look at this COVID thing and the performances that Leicester have been putting in, conceding goals one of two ways. You can then start thinking that this could galvanise and this could create a siege mentality, and then little old Newcastle second bottom of the league roll into town. It could be the perfect opportunity for them. But this Newcastle now isn't the Newcastle it was a month ago. So I think we'll win. I can see us conceding a goal for the reasons I gave earlier about the question marks I have over our defence. But I think we can win, and we'll put in a performance as well. 2-1 to Newcastle.
That's 2 wins. Here goes. Alwaleed, I'll come to you, then I'm going to go to Mitch because it creates the drama. Alwaleed, your prediction?
I think there will not be draw. No draw, because all the teams want to win. And if we respect Leicester, and we didn't care much about the COVID situation, and we played strongest way, and because we are going up in our performance, so I should only can see with this all circumstances. I can say win.
Okay,
Newcastle.
Mitch, over to you. Drum roll.
Spin that dice, and the dice says Leicester City 0, Newcastle United 1.
Hey,
it's a clean sweep. It's a clean sweep this morning, lads. Absolute pleasure. Mick, great to have you back. Final word to you, Mick. Just to everybody watching.
Yeah, again, just to say thank you, Steve. Thanks to say to you boys for persevering with me, and apologising for getting the odd word here and there. But as I said, the NHS have done a fantastic, stirring job for me. And as I say, if there's one message, one would obviously be God bless to those in black and white for their thank yous and for their kind messages. But more importantly, get yourself vaccinated, get yourself boosted, help these people to help themselves, because they are probably the greatest thing we have in this country, the NHS. Keep them safe, keep them working, keep them helped, and keep them happy.
Great stuff, great words. Have a great weekend, lads. How are the lads? See you next weekend. Take care.
Thanks, everyone.
Cheers, everyone.
been talking to myself again. Put it to